Hey YouTube, it's Schwan from Prof YGO, back at it again with another deck profile. I wanted to update with basically what deck I've been playing now. I know this channel hasn't had an update in a really long time, and frankly, I just haven't really felt very inspired to make a new deck profile. I haven't been to any major tournaments or any noteworthy events, just pretty much doing the locals grind. But for that time, I've been playing Branded Despia pretty much all the way through since the LA YCS, the other video on this channel. And it's been really good, but sort of as the formats go on, it's gotten a little stale. Until now, I've been really excited to play these new Chimera cards in the branded deck and create my own version of branded Chimera or branded Illusion. It goes by both names online. And so that's what I'm bringing today. A updated version of how I've been playing branded, which is no longer branded Despia, but rather a Chimera deck with a large branded package. So yeah, let's hop right in and I'll show you what I've been doing, as well as provide a little bit of high-level discussion on some of maybe like the more intricate parts of the strategy. There's a lot of videos currently online going over the basics of branded Chimera, and so I wanna not cover what they've already covered and sort of cover some newer stuff, specifically related to some of the more detailed card choice decisions that I made in this deck. So let's hop into it. All right, we'll start with the main deck. So this is a 40 card main deck. And before we get started, I want to go ahead and say that I'm going to assume that you know what all the cards do in this deck. I will occasionally point out their effects as we go along, but there are a lot of other videos already online that are sort of explaining what each individual card does. So again, I'm just going to assume that, and then as we go through, point out more of the more interesting interactions. So for this one, I'm running 3 of the Mirror Sword Knight and 3 of the Codal. These are your 1-card starters, the Mirror Sword Knight being taking up your normal summon, the Codal being a searcher for the Mirror Sword Knight. As well, I'm also playing 3 of the Gazelle and then 3 of the Baphomet. So the Gazelle I have really enjoyed because it is a beast type, and so having access to the Gazelle either in your hand from hard drawing it, or if you need to search this, can really turn on a lot of your polymerization plays and your other Chimera fusion plays. So I do like running 3 of these. I know some people have considered running only 2 of the Big Wing Baphomet, and I think that's also valid. I've just found that in general, against decks that have grinded a little bit better, I really do miss additional copies of the Gazelle and the Big Wing Baphomet. I'm addressing, some deck profiles just having 2 copies of each. So I find that a 3 does come up just to keep your resource loop going. As well, I'm also playing 3 of the Chimera Fusion. This card is totally busted, it being a quick play fusion spell. Allowing you access to Guardian Chimera on your opponent's turn, and just basically providing most of the interruption that the deck has. So I really like having it at 3, and hard opening it is really good. I also like that it helps you dodge hand traps such as Imperm if you happen to hard open this. So that's it for the main deck Chimera cards. Then onto the branded package. So for the branded package, I'm playing a slightly larger package than most deck builds that you'll see online. I can explain a little bit more my reasoning. I might add it as an additional part of this video at the end. But basically, I didn't think the Chimera engine on its own was strong enough to always win if it went first. It trades really efficiently and you generate a lot of card advantage, but you don't actually make that much stuff. So I wanted to add a bigger branded package so I could more reliably add a Mirror Jade to the end board. You do the regular Chimera plays via Chimera Fusion, you get the hand rip, you get all the additional recursion effects, and you get the Guardian Chimera. And if you're able to add Mirror Jade to the end board, I thought that was pretty strong overall. And if you have a bigger branded package, you can more reliably see Mirror Jade going second as an additional removal option that isn't Guardian Chimera. So for that, I'm playing 2 Fallen Valbazes. Again, you want your branded fusion to be live if you end up activating it on the following turns. For my Despia package, I'm playing 3 Despias, 1 Aluber, 1 Tragedy, 1 Ad-Lib. I'm going to come back to this in a second. Because I'm playing Aluber, I'm also clearly playing 3 branded openings. Again, additional copies of branded fusion. And the best card in the deck, still branded fusion. Although you could argue that Mirror Sword Knight is quite good for this deck. Maybe possibly better than branded fusion. Okay, so there's not too much to talk about besides that this is basically 6 copies of branded fusion. In the Chimera deck, you really can't afford to spend your normal summon on Aluber. So in the past, a lot of people would say they had many ways to Aluber, which basically meant they had many copies of branded fusion. Now you can't say that because you can't have a normal summon spent on Aluber. So you've got 6 branded fusions. Now, what about this kind of stuff here? So because this deck is trying to make Mirror Jade as well as the Chimera package, I basically wanted something to send if I was going to make a Mirror Jade. You could choose either to send a light target or a dark target, and I've always favored sending them the Despian Tragedy in order to get the search off of it. For the card I wanted to get off of the Branded Fusion, I chose the Adlib, of course. And the value of having Adlib is that, again, just like back in the old days with Branded, it refreshes your Mirror Jade if you make it with a Guardian Chimera. And what you can do is, if you happen to have access to your Chimera engine, you'll end with this Chimera Fusion set, a Mirror Jade on the field, this Adlib in hand, as well as Beast and Fiend monsters, which you searched from your Mirror Sword Knight. So when you flip up this Chimera Fusion to make a Guardian Chimera, you can use the Adlib, the Mirror Jade, plus one other monster, make the Guardian Chimera, and refresh the Mirror Jade. So I think that was very, very strong. Now, I want to take a second to talk about one Aluber. I see a lot of people who are commenting about playing two Alubers because if you happen to draw one and Branded Opening, the Branded Opening is dead in your hand. You don't have access to Branded Fusion. I think this is really incorrect because basically what you're saying is, what is the probability of drawing one of, a three of, as well as a one of or a two of, depending on if you're playing two or one Aluber, and you didn't draw Branded Fusion. And so I think the odds of that are really, really low overall, and I think that's just probably not the most efficient way to build your deck. As well, if you happen to be playing Adlib in the deck, I'm mostly playing it for the Mirror Jade play. But if you happen to open the Aluber and the Branded Opening, by playing Adlib in the deck, what you can do is, if you have access to, again, Chimera Fusion or Polymerization, as you'll see later, you can Polymerization away your Aluber and your Adlib, which you grab off the Branded Opening. On a new chain afterwards, the Adlib will target the Aluber and Grave to Monster Reborn, and then on summon, the Monster Reborn Aluber will get you to the Branded Fusion. So by running the Adlib in deck, you can actually make sure that you are way less likely to clog if you happen to open these two, and these two are already not a high probability play to open. So I don't think it's really valid to run two Aluber just for that reason. So that's it for the Branded package in the main deck. I'm also playing the Patchwork engine, as I alluded to with the Polymerization. So I'm playing 3 Edge Imp, 2 Patchwork, and then 2 Polymerization. I do think that you could probably do 2, 2, and 2. I just found that I had room for one more card, and I really didn't like it when I wasn't able to resolve my Patchwork. So if this search was dead. And so I found having the 3rd Edge Imp is just something I personally always preferred for the card advantage and for keeping Patchwork live. But I could see cutting it to add room for more non-engine. Finally, for the last slots in the main deck, I'm playing 2 sets of non-engine plus an additional 40th card. And the line of thinking for what I did for the non-engine is this deck in particular, if you start to play it, you'll notice that it gains card advantage so quickly. And it can really set up layered interruptions, although it doesn't set up too many of them per turn. So what I typically found that playing against this deck, what your opponents will want to do is basically extend as far as possible so they can kill you in one turn before you can use all the card advantage that you've amassed. So to that end, I want to use non-engine that worked well with the deck, but also punished opponents who were overextending to try to kill in one turn. And so for that, I chose Nibiru and Super Poly. Both of these non-engine slots were very powerful, high impact, and potentially game warping if you can actually resolve them on your opponent, especially if your opponent is trying to play at sort of all gas as possible to try to kill you before you can hit him on the crackback with all your amassed card advantage. And then finally, for the 40th card, A Call by the Grave, this deck is really susceptible to hand traps, specifically Ash and Droll. It's nice now that because you have Ash, you can... It's nice now against Ash, you actually have Branded Fusion and Mirror Sword Knight, so there's only really... there's 2 starters that they get hit with Ash, so you can kind of insulate yourself that way. But Call by the Grave is just really powerful in order to insulate yourself further from these hand traps. And so that's it for the main deck. Let's hop over to the extra deck. So for the extra deck, I'm playing 2 copies of Chimera, the King of Phantom Beasts. This is the main card that you're going to be making going first as a part of the 1-card combo. And occasionally you can make this going second as well. I'll explain why how in a second. This card does a lot because basically on its own it represents a hand rip going first. But by staying on the field, it actually represents 2 additional negates based on the graveyard setup. Then I'm running 1 Chimera, the Illusion Beast. This is a new card that's sort of like Ninja Mosquito. It basically represents an OTK out of nowhere if your opponent can't deal with the fact that this monster, just shows up. So basically, if you're able to deal with your opponent's board with your other cards, non-engine as well as the branded engine, and you're able to get to this card, as long as your opponent has a monster on the field, you can probably attack into it, do a ton of damage, and then having any one other body can kill with this card. So everyone's always covering the one card combo that gets you to the Guardian Chimera as well as the King of Phantom Beasts. I'm going to ignore that because you can look it up online. Instead, I want to talk about how do you get to this card if you're going second. So basically, if you're going second, and let's say you manage to play into their board a little bit, so you're actually confident that you can get an attack off. What you can do is, if you still are able to do this, you have your normal summon Mirror Sword Knight, tributing off, getting yourself the Big Wing Baphomet, which gets you the Chimera Fusion as well as this guy, the Gazelle. You can then activate the Chimera Fusion, fusing these guys off, making the King of Phantom Beasts, where you'll Monster Reborn the Mirror Sword Knight, you'll add the Codal off of the Gazelle, and then you'll return the Chimera Fusion to hand. You can then activate Chimera Fusion again, fusing off all these three things to make the King of Illusion, the Chimera the Illusion Beast, which is going to be able to attack 3 times because it was made using 3 fusion materials. And that's a 1-card way to getting this guy right here. So that's just a short little aside. And well, I actually probably could have put it at the end of the video. Anyway, okay, so that's a short little aside for how you get a 1-card combo this guy here, which can easily threaten an OTK. 2 Guardian Chimera, you really need 2 at least. I found that this comes up a lot in the grind game, and this represents the main point of interruption that your deck has. So for the Albaz package, we have 1 Rimbrum. You actually need this even if you didn't really have a big Albaz package, because part of the materials for the Rimbrum allow you to send the Gazelle from your deck using Branded Fusion, which then allow you to search an Illusion monster, which gets you the Codal or the Mirror Sword Knight to start your Chimera plays. The rest of the Albaz cards are kind of flex spots, but because I'm running a bigger Albaz package, I want to have more access to these cards. 1 Albion, 1 Lubellion, 1 Titaniclad, 2 Mirror Jades. So remember, Lubellion is the one I'm always making off Branded Fusion. I have Albion to send the first time, or the Rimbrum if I want one in the graveyard setup for Fallen of Albaz, as well as a Titaniclad I can send, and then 2 Mirror Jades to do the Rimbrum Monster Reborn in the Fallen of Albaz for that Super Poly-esque play. In terms of flex spots, I have 1 Masquerade, which has been kind of nice. It's just nice to have a time card that's built into the deck. Because I'm running a higher Despy account, I can more reliably see these. And then for the rest of them, I'm playing the Super Poly targets. So I'm playing 1 Mud Dragon, 1 Garura, 1 Dragostapelia. I would actually maybe consider playing these even if I didn't have Super Poly in the deck, because a lot of the times you can end up having a pretty clogged hand that a Polymerization can really get all of your engines started. And so you might have to Polymerization for one of these 2 cards. It's nice to have the Dragostapelia just as an additional form of interruption as well. And because of the Lubellion Fusion, you can use this as a target to recycle back additional extra deck cards. Okay. And so lastly, I'll move on to the side deck. Now, I just want to caveat, side decks are always built for whatever tournament you're going to. I happen to go to a fair number of locals, which have a pretty diverse metagame. So I expect to see a lot of meta decks, but as well, I can sometimes see pretty rogue decks. So in general, this side deck is made to be for a diverse field. So I'm playing 3 Ash, 3 Droll, 3 Book of Moon. I'm not going to say too much about these in particular, but I do want to comment on the Droll. So a lot of people in this format are playing Droll in the main deck, and in general, I agree. I think Droll in the main deck is very, very strong. Unfortunately for the Chimera deck, the Droll in the main deck isn't nearly as strong as it could be as a going first option. So if you're going first with this deck and you set up the standard Chimera play, part of your interruption is a Guardian Chimera on your opponent's turn. If you happen to have Droll and Lockbird and you want to use it on your opponent's turn, you have to either choose to use the Droll right away or Guardian Chimera them and then Droll afterwards. Basically, you're forcing yourself into a weird conflict where your hand trap isn't as impactful, or you can't make the Guardian Chimera part of your end board, which is one of the strongest parts of your end board. And so for that reason, I think Droll is less good going first in this deck than most other decks, and that's why I put it in the side deck, just so that I side it in as a strict going second option. Back row removal, 1 Harpies, 2 Cosmic Cyclone, and then the going first option, the only dedicated going first option is 3 D Barrier. Just a really strong card in this format. And yeah, so that's pretty much everything for the deck. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed the discussion. Please let me know what you think about the Chimera deck. And yeah, looking forward to continuing playing with this and trying out some new ideas as well as refining my current build. Cheers, guys. See ya.